Hi friends, let's see the app we are going to develop in the next couple of lessons. When you run this app, this is the main option screen. You will see a menu which is on a table view. So I can click on say employee options, then it will load this data, and all the employee data are loaded dynamically from a data source, right? And then I can click on employee, and then it's dynamically changing this page with that particular employee and the projects. If I go back and click another employee, you can see the same page is dynamically changing with that employee and the projects, which are all loaded dynamically. The images are also loaded dynamically from a data source, right? So it's different images loaded dynamically. And then I can delete employees. Let's say I can swipe and say delete, then it deletes the data, right? If not, I can click on edit and say if I want to delete something, click on this and click delete, right? And when I'm done, I can say done, right? And then further I can insert data dynamically. Let us say a section P and say Peter, for example, and click OK. So it all gets added dynamically, right? Then once I'm done with employees, I can go scroll down, right? And then I can go into department options, right? So department, and do the same thing for department, right? But it's very important that you have to make sure to look at the next couple of lectures in this on table views, that is part 1, 2, 3, etc., until we complete this app. It explains all the theory and the practical knowledge which you need to know about developing this app, right? Okay friends, we are very excited to show you how to develop this app practically, and let's do it now. Okay friends, so the following is the outcome of this part of the lesson. When you complete this part of the lesson, your app will look like this until you complete the other part of the lesson. It will dynamically show you a list of employees, right? And that's it, what it does in this app, right? Because it's very important for you to know how to start with this, right? But after you complete this lesson, make sure to go and look at the next lessons in order to complete the full app demonstrated earlier. Hi everyone. So let's start the next lesson. It's about table views, dynamic content, UI table view controller, part 3. Let's see what's inside this, right? It's going to be an exciting journey. Okay. Tools used in this lecture will be using Xcode version 11.4.1 for practicals and Apple Developer Docs for referencing. Prerequisites, you'll have to look at the following lessons, very important, about Objective-C in this series, about table views, static content, and also look at the other lectures on table view, dynamic content, UITableViewController part 1 and part 2 just before looking at this, right? You need to have some basic lessons as well. Better to look at some basic lessons. So in this session, you are going to learn using UITableViewController to display a list of employee names, right? And continue to use the UITableView data source protocol, right? And continue to understand that the table view controllers already adapt to this protocol, right? And that it's your responsibility to override the data source methods, right? And to fill the data, and continue to use the UI table view cell, right? And continue to configure further the UI table view cell. Lesson plan, it's going to be practical demonstrations, my friends, right? Awesome. Let's start from where we stopped, right? So in the previous lesson, we just did it up to this point. So let's run this to make sure that it is, as where we stopped, right, in the last lesson. Okay, so basically we came up with a UI table view controller, and we added a UI table view controller class to it, and we started to support the UI table view data source protocol, right? And we override 3 methods, if you remember in the previous lesson, which gave us this output, right? Now let's change this hello text into a list of employees, right? So let's start doing it now. So quick recap. So a very quick recap of the previous lesson. So this is a table view controller, and we created a table view controller hello source file using a child class of your table view controller. And then we very importantly, we went and said that in the table view controller we set it as look at the identity inspector, we set it as the class for the table view controller, right? And very importantly, what we did was, for the table view, we know that there's a table view. Into the table view cells we gave identifier, right, reusable identifier. and then we have given some styles, right, to the table view cells, right? Awesome. And then inside the table view controller, we override the number of sections, the table number of rows, and the self row at index path methods, right? Awesome. And we have hard coded the value hello my friends, right? So let's say that we want to get some dynamic content. Let's start from array, right? So let's start with array to get some data, and then moving forward in this series, when we discuss about database programming, you will see how we can get data from a database and display in a table view, right? But for now, let's do it with the array, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a array with a list of employee names. So I'm going to create a instance variable, right? Of course, you can make it as a property as well, depending on the situation. But for now, let's make it as an instance variable, right? So I started curly brackets, and that is how you create instance variables. Have a look at our previous lesson about instance variables if you are not sure about the syntax, right? Okay, let's create a ns array, right? So let's create a object of ns array, and let's call it as list of employee names, right, my friends? So I'm just declaring the array, right? And then let's go into the table view controller, and let's initialize, let's load the array with data, right? So in the view did load at the beginning, when the view is getting loaded, I would like to add the data to the array, right? So the array name is list of employee names, right? And then I'm going to assign some fixed values, but as I said, we can read this from a database, right? Let's do it in another lesson, right? But for now, this is how I'm going to store some data in an array, right? NS array. So this is the syntax. Once again, look at our previous lessons on NS array if you are not sure about this syntax. Okay, my friends, right? Let's give some hard-coded values. Let's say a couple of names, right? John. Okay, let's say then the next employees, let's say Anne, right? Okay, and let's type a few names. Awesome. So I got 3 values, right? Now the next thing is, this can be 3 values, or this can be 5, or this can be 10, right? This can be dynamically growing, right? So because of that, when it comes to the method table view, and then the table view say number of rows in the section, I should not hard code into 3, because if it's 5 names here, this should be 5. If it's 10 names here, this should be 10. So instead of hard coding the number of rows, I can get it as a dynamic value, right? So what I can do is I can get the count, meaning I can count how many data items are there in this array. So the best thing is, instead of telling 3, I can return the count, which I'm going to get from the array, my friend. So my array is a list of employee names, right? How about just giving it, rather than calling it as list of employee names, let's call it as array, right? So let's say ARR array, right? Array ARR list of. So now we know it's an array, and it's a list of employee name. That's just to make it clear, right? So that okay, it's an array ARR. So from the ARR list of employee names, my friends, I can get the count, right? So the count returns a NS integer, right? NSU integer, right? So basically, it tells me how much of how many items are in the array, right? So that it's dynamic. Awesome, right? So let's see this in action. Now let's bring this down to 1 item, right? Let's cut some of the items from this, right? And let's run. So the count should be 1, right? Okay, so the count should be 1, and I should see only one row, right? Let's try this, right? So let's run this and let's see. So because it's 1 item, I should see only 1 row. See, 1 hello message, right? Still it's not reading the data from the array, right? It's getting only the count. But let's say if I put 3 items, right, the count should be 3, right, my friends, right? The count should be 3. Let's see, right? Let's see how it works, right? Let's connect this. Let's run this now with 3 items, and the count should be 3. So I should see 3 rows, right? Awesome, friends. But still, it says hello. Why? That is because though the count is dynamic now, in the table view, cell for row at index path method, right? In this method, shape table view, I'm hard coding the value to be hello. Now, instead of hard coding it to be the value hello, I would like to say, okay, get one by one. So from the array and display it as the cells, right? As the value of the cells. Now the question is, how do I say that, right? How do I say, okay, get one by one values from the tape from that array and display it as in the cells, right? Let's see how to do it. So what you have to say here is, let's say what you have to say here is the text, instead of hard coding it as hello, let's say from the array, right? Okay, let's say from the array, right, list of employee names. Let's say you want to get, so how to get items from arrays, you put square brackets and then you will tell the index, right? Let's say if you put the index 0, right, which means from the array you are going to get the first element, right? That's what it says, right? So let's run and see what's going to be the output, right? So in my cells I'm telling, okay, from the list of arrays get me the value of index 0. See, it's John. Awesome. Why is it John for all the 3 rows? Because I'm always getting the index 0. But if I want the second row, like let's say the second value, let's say from the array, right, then I should say, okay, index 1. So what happens now is, for every row it will print and, because I'm always getting the index 1. So what I have to do now is change this also dynamically, right? So when it's the first row, I should get the first value from this. When it's the second row in the table, I should get the second value. Third row, I should get the third. So for me to get that, I can get the help of this parameter index path, right? So this parameter index path, right? So if I use it here, index path, right? It, from the index path, I can find the section number and the row number, right? So I got two methods to find the section and the row. So if I say section, it will give me the current section. If I say row, it will give me the current row which is being populated, right? So what I'm telling is, okay, I'm going to say from this index path, I'm telling I want the current row, right? So how do I get it? So from the index path, I'm going to say, okay, index path dot row, because I'm going to refer to the row element of the index path. So which means how you access it, you will say row index path dot row. Now this gives you the current row, right, dynamically, right? When this table is being populated, at one instance it is row 1, row 2, row 3, depending on how many how many number of rows. So that depends on the count. So if this has 10 items, this will be 10. In that case, it will create 10 rows. Each row will have a cell. Then it will get the row number dynamically, right? And it's 0 based. The indexes are 0 based. So this will work because the row 1, when it's row 1, the index of row 1 is going to be 0. That's because the indexes are 0 based, right? Awesome. So if you run this now, you should see that things in action, guys. Let's see. Awesome, my friends. It's working, right? It's working. So let's go and do a quick change, right? So I would like to, instead of having, okay, I would like to have, let's say another name here, right? So let's add another name dynamically, right? So let's say, let's add another name. Let's add 2 more names. So guys, I added 2 names. And also I would like this label to be not test. I would like this to say detail, right? So that it gives the idea that I can click over there to get more details, right? Don't worry about this. So I got 5 names. So this should dynamically work. So the count should be 5 and it should generate 5 rows, and in each row it generates a cell. Awesome, my friends, it gets the data, right? So this is how you dynamically populate a table view with data, right? Dynamic data. And as I said earlier, in line number 26 over here, I have a fixed array, but just wait till we do our lesson on database, right? Objective-C database programming. In our lesson in database programming, we will show you how to get this list of employee names from the database, right? And then your table will be populated dynamically with the data from the database. Let's see what's next, guys. Okay, friends, so we implemented the lesson plan. So we went through the stuff, right? We covered this part, right? And the conclusion is you continued learning more on UITableView controllers. You displayed a list of names. you further started overriding the methods in the UI data view, UI table view data source protocol, right? Then third bullet point, you continue to use the UI table view cell, and we did some practicals, and you can find the link to download the source code for the projects done in this session in the relevant download section in this series, right? Awesome. References of Apple developer docs. What's next, guys? What's next is you should next thing is we are going to talk about further on table view dynamic content, right? So important for you to continue this to get the next extra knowledge. So what we are going to do in the next lesson is we are going to combine everything. We are going to list the employee names and detailed text labels, and we are going to add images, right? So that's going to be something very interesting for you to add images into a table view, right? And have a look at our other videos on Objective-C A to Z series, right? Also make sure to have a look at the other series on machine learning, AI, and data science, because that's the future, my friends, right? So we are very excited to meet you in another lecture. See you until that.